This is a time of great opportunity for BHP. The resources we produce are essential to the energy transition and global economic growth. Our products are fundamental to the way we live now and into the future. Now more than ever, we need to provide the world the resources it needs responsibly and sustainably. Imagine what we can achieve if we continue to think big.
Welcome you to this panel session, wherever in the world you may be joining from. My name is Janine Herzig and I'm President of the AusIMM and Chair of the Board. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the many lands on which we meet today, in particular the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and pay respect to elders past and present. AusIMM is the peak body leading the way for people in the resources sector, representing more than 13,000 members around the world. We shape careers, showcase leadership, create communities, and uphold standards. We are a proud founding partner of IMARC and thrilled that this event is connecting thousands of people from our global mining and resources community. Today's panel session is on the importance of developing a skilled workforce for the digital age. The resources sector, like much of the world, is seeing technological change and adoption accelerate at an unprecedented rate. This poses important questions for the mining workforce, who are, after all, the life of the sector. Some of the areas we will explore in this session are how mining professionals can be better supported in understanding, implementing, and leading digital change. How we can facilitate a strong workforce pipeline at all career levels, and the importance of lifelong learning amidst this accelerated period of change. AusIMM is very passionate about supporting a skilled workforce for the future and does this in a variety of ways. Formal and informal mentoring, providing scholarships and awards, including on-the-job work experience, our in-person and online professional and technical conferences and courses, to name a few. The importance of having a skilled pipeline of professionals is very important to me personally and professionally. And I'm joined today by two people who are equally passionate about this topic. And they are Jill Terry, Vice President of Technical Capability at BHP, and Darren Stralow, Chief Development Officer at Northern Star Resources. So I'll kick off the batting now with a couple of questions for our panelists. And I'll start by asking Jill, if you'd like to go first. What does the digital age mean for the resources sector?
That's a great question. Thanks, Janine. Look, technology is changing the way that the resources industry professionals work and indeed changing the skills that will be required by the industry in the future. Autonomous operations require a step change toward provide a step change toward improved safety. However, this means that data collection, for example, also needs to be autonomous because it won't be safe to have people in the mines taking samples. Equally, airborne geophysical and hyperspectral sensors enable preliminary exploration without land disturbance. Machine learning and artificial intelligence are being applied for exploration targeting. However, there's still much to learn as the industry experiments with digital innovation. Innovative sensors have the potential to collect valuable quantitative data. However, next-gen professionals, in addition to applying their fundamental knowledge, they'll also need to decide which sensors are they going to select that they're going to deploy and in what locations to provide the right data to underpin optimal decision-making for resource development, extraction, and processing. The potential to unlock value is significant, and it's an exciting time to be part of the industry. But as a minerals industry, we can learn a lot also about the application of technology for data collection, processing and decision-making from our oil and gas counterparts who actually have decades of experience in this area. Given the diversity of BHP's portfolio, we believe that we're actually uniquely positioned to learn from oil and gas and apply this knowledge and have the understanding about equipping the workforce for the future. As we transition to the digital age, BHP has developed a framework of workforce capability requirements from graduates through to subject matter experts. And we're sharing that framework with universities to help them to guide future capability development requirements and also their learning programs as they rebuild curricula to address the needs of the future. I'll probably leave it there.
Thanks, Jill. Yes, I think very important to have that cross collaboration with other industries who may face very similar challenges. So that's really important. And Darren, for you, what does the digital age mean for our sector?
Look, it really does mean a lot of change, and I think it's going to be positive change to the sector. Picking up from what Jill said, there's a lot of things that have been introduced in recent years and we can see on the horizon being introduced. And what this is going to mean is that, I guess it all comes down to better decision making at an operational level. And with better decisions, this means, safer mines, more productive mines, more cost-effective mines. And that in turn will mean that mines that might not have been economic in the past can then become economic. And is going to create the new ore bodies of the future. So it's going to, the way that we approach mining, I guess, the mining methodology has the opportunity to change through all this as well. And I guess from that people perspective, I think it's a huge opportunity, right? Like mining used to be an industry for, big burly men that want to be living out in the country and getting dirty every day. And that's not what modern mining is. This technology revolution is going to change the type of people that are going to be effective on a mine site from a day-to-day basis. And, that's from, professional to technical to operational levels. And it's going to require new skill sets. And as an underground gold miner, and I've been predominantly an underground miner my whole career, we are still seeing and yet to see a lot of the technological changes that the surface miners have had. And a big part of that is communication. So, when you're on the surface, you've got GPS, you've got 5G, you've got all these things that you can assist to get you there. They allow you to make all these fundamental changes to how you operate and your methodology. We're still yet to see that from an underground perspective because we haven't solved the issue of comms and pervasive comms in underground mining. And when that comes, which I know a lot of people are working on and a lot of smart mines have been applied to, when that comes in coming years, that's going to change underground mining as well. And look, I think it's just an exciting time and it's going to just attract a new breed of people and a new breed of professional to the industry.
Thanks, Darren. You touched there on skills and the new skills that will be required. Could you just expand a little bit on what some of those future skills the mining professionals will need to have?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think it's a really good point because you look back at recent times and we've seen that modern Australia still is very reliant on the resources industry and very reliant on mining. We're a huge part of the economy and a significant part. So look, the answer is that we have to attract the best skills and the best people, and we have to stay relevant. And I think that there's many ways to think about that. And I was involved recently in the redesign of the mining engineering curriculum at the School of Mines, which was a very good initiative that was taken up by Curtin at the time. And when we were looking at it, we saw it as sort of four pillars. So there was the scientific foundations of engineering, and I think that's across any discipline, whether it's the scientific foundations of geology, metallurgy, any other professional sort of degree you'd look to have in mining. Then there's the mining fundamentals, so mining methods, mining systems, how you can apply those scientific foundations to mining fundamentals. That creates that base of knowledge. Then on top of that comes the value additions, and that needs to be pervasive through the whole thing as well. But that's where your technology, your data analytics, your mine economics all ties into those sort of skill sets and what you need. And then what we can't forget through it all, in modern society, you need that big focus on license to operate. So how mining contributes to society, how we protect the environment, how we, stay good corporate citizens. I mean, I think that when we designed that, it was done in a really positive way. And, it's a good start that can be applied over sort of any degree and any discipline.
Yeah, it's glad you brought up the social performance side of things, Darren. And AusIMM's actually recently put out a social responsibility framework for our members at various levels, depending on what competencies they have and whether they're social performance professionals. And I think it's really important that all professionals, have that basic knowledge in that area. And we've also put out a public statement around that social value as well. So, Jill, did you have anything to add on in terms of the future skills that our professionals will need?
I think Darren's actually covered it very well. I think we also need to be cognizant when we think about future professionals about the opportunities for the industry to retrain people to take up professional careers. And so I think there's, in fact, I know that there is a number of micro-credential units that are being and have been created across the mining engineering space. I know that there's also opportunity in the metallurgy space, and I'd like to see more in the earth sciences area, where we can actually take people whose roles may actually become redundant because of the technological change to the industry, but we can actually provide those people, if they want to, with the skills to take on professional careers. So I think we have the areas that we need to focus on, but then we also need to be thinking about what is the pipeline for those future professionals, and so there is potential in the retraining space, but it's also about developing interest for young people in terms of a future career within the resources industry.
Yeah, that point about the retraining is a really important one, and actually leads in nicely to the next area I'd like to explore. The concept of lifelong learning is a really important one, and it's one that AusIMM facilitates through our chartered professional program, which has at its core the requirement to be qualified, competent and current. And by current, I mean via continuous professional development. So how do we, Jill, if you'd like to tackle this one first, how do we as an industry encourage professionals to adopt a continuous learning mindset?
Yeah, it's that's an interesting challenge. Look, people are natural learners. They're naturally curious, and it is about providing the tools for people to express that interest in learning. But it's not just about the theoretical learning, it is also then about the practical application of that theoretical learning. And so I think if we look back to a couple of decades ago, we had some dedicated institutions like the Australian Mineral Foundation that provided a lot of learning packages. Those groups actually don't exist these days. And so it really is about being resourceful in terms of looking at where are the opportunities for providing that lifelong learning. And so we do have opportunities in terms of the universities and the courses that some of the universities are offering in both the micro-credential area, as well as courses that are dedicated to essential learning in very specific areas. And so one example would be the University of Western Australia, in collaboration with BHP and Rio Tinto, is developing a hands-on and theoretical piece of learning on tailings management. But then you have University of Queensland that's providing advanced metallurgical learning, etc. So there is quite a lot in that space. There is one other initiative in the mining engineering space that ourselves and Anglo American are supporting, which is with the AMPS group, to provide advanced learning across the mining engineering and mine planning space for industry professionals. And that's going to be effectively 150 modules is my current understanding. That really goes everywhere from foundational, and I think foundational is really important for cross-discipline understanding as well. So the foundational unit, which is actually not far from being launched, will be for 0 to 5 years in the mining, in the young mining professionals area for mine planners, etc. But it will also be a great piece of knowledge that geoscientists and metallurgists and surveyors can take home in terms of how do they relate better and actually add more value when they're working with mining engineers. So those units will actually, when they're developed, will be available for a fee, and that will become available through AMPS on a common platform. So I think that's a great opportunity for mining professionals to uplift skill. And then of course we have the usual offering of conferences, etc., for people to learn from others, because again, that's really important to take the positives, but also learn from when things don't go so well, so that you can actually help to refine what you do as a professional as you go forward. So yeah, we're always learning, and it's actually having those tools available to do so.
Great, thanks, Jill. Darren, your thoughts on how we can encourage professionals to adopt continuous learning?
Yeah, great. And look, I think Jill made some awesome points there, and that online education piece, I think, is something that is going to grow a lot in the next few years. It's that traditional having to take a couple of weeks off work to go to university and sit down and do a face-to-face course. In modern mining, that's not necessarily practical, whereas a lot of these online offerings that are coming now are they have that availability. They're relevant, they're driven by industry, there's smart people getting involved, and they are keeping them relevant. And that availability of them being on these awesome online platforms that have come up now is going to drive a lot of, involvement from people and ability for people to get access to them. So look, I really do think that's a great initiative going forward. Look, one thing I'd kind of like to touch on as a part of this is that as corporates, we have a huge part to play in this. That's the empowerment of our professionals and the empowerment of people to be able to, learn on the job, do projects on the job, try things out, fail them, be rewarded for that, and, try new things. And this is really where, the fundamental, everyday sort of work that someone can do can drive into it. It comes down to the culture of the companies and the culture of the professionals that are starting to come through. I remember reading an article in the Financial Review a year or so ago that was this big surprise article that said junior staff are showing up CEOs and boards on mining innovation. And I thought that was funny because they talk about it as a shock. But, I've run the graduate program here at Northern Star for the last sort of 9 or so years. And, we bring in, current years, we're bringing in 30 to 40 graduates a year. And just the skills and the curiosity that these guys bring in from the very start is so impressive. And as a company, it's our position to try and utilize on some of that enthusiasm and some of that sort of new skill set to drive things. I mean, when I went through university, I had a Nokia 5110 mobile phone that had the little keypad on it. You could maybe play a game of Snake if you wanted to, and that was how I stayed connected with the world. You look at this new generation and they've got supercomputers in their pockets, and they've grown up with technology, and they've grown up with innovation, and they've grown up with this sort of outlook on life where things can always be improved and things can always be optimized. If you get them into businesses and then start to give them projects where they can utilize some of that to improve their work life, and you give them some budgets, some projects some time to be able to invest in that side of things, you can see those results as a company. So I think that, look, I love the online learning, the outside of work learning part of it. I think the other side of it is, you know, these guys are coming, doing long rosters, spending time at work, having that, you know, the corporate support and the company culture of, you know, empowerment to drive learning and try new projects and implement technology and be owners of that coming forward. We start that with our graduates, and then, you know, these guys are the guys that that'll be in the industry and leading the industry in future years, and that's going to be a huge part going forward too.
Absolutely. Showing my age here, Darren, but we didn't have mobile phones at all when I was at university, and I think we had about 5 computers that we shared in the entire metallurgical engineering department. So
Yes.
things have changed very rapidly. But I'm glad you mentioned culture, Darren, because I think that is really the key, you know, to all of this. You notice that businesses that encourage that creative thinking and, you know, over compliance, so that people do feel safe to express their ideas and you know, to experiment with different things. And if they fail, they fail. But, you know, you have that sort of open culture. So I think that's really, really important. Jill, I know that you're involved in a very exciting program that is happening soon, I think. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you. So it is exciting. It's, I guess, when we think about the future professionals within the industry, we really should be thinking right back to the start of that pipeline, and that's our school kids. And so this is an area that I'm really passionate about, because there are many people who currently work in the industry who literally fell into it accidentally. They didn't have prior exposure. And so I think it is really, really important that for kids at a relatively young age to start building that understanding between the natural world of resources and indeed what the industry is all about and what it provides for the globe in terms of, you know, again, going back to the mobile phone, without the resources industry, we wouldn't have mobile phones. So there's an education piece for students as early as primary school around that natural resources space. And to do this, we actually do have the technology available to provide an interactive experience that can be aligned with the school curriculum. So the very exciting project is a piece of work that I've been doing collaboratively with Susie Urbaniak from the Core Learning Foundation, as well as an IT expert and a game developer, to design interactive curriculum embedded and accessible games. We're just starting with a focus on Year 6 and Year 8 students at this stage. And the Australian curriculum themes, and this is really important, that these games are embedded within the curriculum. They're not a bolt-on, they actually will be part of the learning curriculum. So the themes though in Year 6 is around natural disasters, and then for Year 8 the curriculum talks about the earth sciences space. So for the Year 6 students, we've got a project that is proposed using the Minecraft Education Edition, and in that project the students will apply their scientific knowledge to collaboratively mitigate the impacts of geoscientific natural disasters such as volcanoes, earthquakes and tsunamis. The premise of the game is actually around the students completing a series of challenges to become part of a mine emergency response team, because I think it is important that the students actually correlate the good that resources companies do for the community. And the emergency response teams, they've been working tirelessly for decades, but there often is not that connection made between what the resources companies do, and so this will actually help to tease that out. The Year 8 game is really exciting. It's actually using a party games concept, which I had not previously heard of, and that's actually taking a scenario of a train laden with iron ore that's passing through the Pilbara from mine to port. And it actually teases out a connection as to various aspects of the train's load, the train itself, or the rail network in terms of how they came to be. From the formation of oxygen, where students actually get to be a stromatolite and compete against each other to create oxygen, to the student being able to virtually descend into a primordial sea in a capsule in search of black smokers that actually then when you add the oxygen, you start to form banded iron formations. So they can get amongst the formation of what is, a very, very important export product for Australia. And they learn about the combustion reaction fueling the train's engine. And then very importantly, they actually learn about the ancient Indigenous songline routes. And those routes are along where the modern train line either goes or indeed deviates, depending upon the discussions that the students have virtually with Indigenous landowners about the history of the country and then how we best manage that moving forward. These games will also be downloadable onto portable devices, which will be important for students to be able to take those home to parents and show them what they've been doing and just start that positive discussion about careers in the resources industry and a really understanding using science and maths and engineering about the interrelationship between the natural resources and what actually happens in the world. So I think it's an area that that we really haven't focused on very much. And if we start building that relationship at a very young age, then I think it will be something that actually does come into the mind of a student when they're starting to think about what subjects to choose as they get to the later end of high school, and indeed what career might they be able to take on. So we're about to go out to tender for game developers to create the games. But yeah, it is actually a very exciting piece of work that we're doing.
Fantastic, Jill. Makes me want to go back to year 6 so that I could participate. But you're right, it takes generations, to affect positive change. And what we do want to see is, families getting involved in conversations about the importance of the resources sector and how it's actually driving so much of the technological advancements and reduction in carbon and all the rest of it. So sounds great. So any further comments from you, Darren? We're down to the last few minutes.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think that's really good. I mean, it really takes me back to, a big issue that we were having back in 2018 that it was, I guess, well discussed at the time, but there was a youth insight survey that went out to high school age students that asked them if they knew anything about mining careers and the mining industry. And 60% of them came back and said they knew nothing at all about mining. So look, anything that we can do to, educate people, to let people know about, mining as a fundamental thing, as careers in mining, as the positives of mining. I think the industry really got a kick in the bum back in those times and needed to move along. And, initiatives like what Jill's talking about, like the Core Learning Foundation, like the focus on mining camps, the things that are some great initiatives by the industry are helping do that. And I think that, anything in that space is going to be great. And I mean, talking about some of the focus on mining camps, Curtin, along with industry, is organising one for January next year that's aimed at year 10 to 12 female students to go up to Kalgoorlie, visit some mining operations and see how they go. We sent that out to a few contacts recently, and I think the numbers there was about 30 available spots on there. They had 200 applications to try and get on the mining camp. So look, it's a great start. We're not there yet, but look, anything is going to help. So I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely. No, it's great to see things like that happening, and the fact that the response was so overwhelming is is wonderful. And I know in that survey too, there was a really big difference between kids in the city and kids in rural or mining areas in terms of their knowledge of what goes on in the industry. So we are now out of time. So I would like to thank both of you for your wonderful insights. It's been a great discussion and we could probably go on all day. So I'd like to thank everyone who has joined us online. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye-bye.